All right, so let's get to Jerod Mayo on Zolak and Bertrand. A couple of good things you heard, Greg, a couple of things that you weren't necessarily in love with. Let's start with the good. Mayo talked about what we've talked about over the last, it feels like 5 years, but it's the last couple of years on this podcast, getting faster and getting more explosive on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, he said we're looking to get faster, more explosive, and put more playmakers on the field. I mean, hallelujah, music to our ears. Like, at least they're seeing things for the most part the way it is on film, the way it is apparent to everybody that at various points this year, the Patriots, played slow. They did not look athletic. They had a lot of issues. They didn't make enough negative plays towards the end of the season. Not enough pass rush, exposed the coverage. It was bad. It was some of the worst defensive football we've seen ever around here, especially from a group that had talent on it. So that was good to hear. It was good to hear that that Mayo has basically turned down defensive coordinator positions, or at least interviewing for those. Because he said,
I want to jump in there. Are you
Yep.
surprised that he wasn't involved with the Raiders process? I mean, Josh McDaniels didn't bring him in, or did he try to bring him in, and we don't know about that? It seemed to me when McDaniels went to Vegas, I thought, well, maybe he would take Mayo with him as the DC, but that never kind of came to fruition.
Yeah, I don't think that was ever on the radar. I don't think it was ever a consideration. I mean, I know people like to talk about that stuff, but I don't think that McDaniels wanted to take too many Patriots people.
Gotcha.
You don't want to go raiding the Patriots. He brought Hardigree, and I think that might be it. And the big thing, and Mayo addressed it, is like, look, why is he going to take a defensive coordinator position somewhere? Why, if you're Josh McDaniels, you bring in Jerod Mayo, and he proves himself as a defense coordinator a year or two, and then he's gone. He's getting a head coaching job. Mayo can jump from a head coaching job from New England, where he's comfortable, his kids are in school, to a head coaching job. And I think he even said that in the interview, that he's very comfortable with that, as opposed to other assistant coaches. Nick, he's a former first-round pick. He got a lot of extensions from the Patriots. Basically, he was the contract guy for Belichick. So if they needed to create some cap space, Mayo was the guy who got money up front to spread out his cap hit. So he has money, and he's done well with his money. He's making the rounds right now because he's got that sweet Hellman's Mayo money coming in for a Super Bowl spot. So he's not like these guys who have been working for the Patriots, and they've been, started out making $60,000 and working 80 hours a week, and have slowly moved up. He's made millions, and so he can afford to be picky as opposed to some other players. So yeah, I was not surprised at that. I never thought that was going to happen.
Don't want to spend too much time on this, but I just going to have a weird hypothetical, since we're talking about Joe Judge's future and Bill O'Brien, and Bill O'Brien possibly looking at the Patriots head coaching job when Belichick decides to call it a career, which I don't know, might be another 20 years from now, the way he's going. But when you look at Mayo, do you think Mayo's on the board? The Patriots look at him as maybe somebody who might rise up to that level, and maybe he's thinking,
Absolutely.
well, why am I going to leave when I might be anointed the guy when Bill steps aside?
Yeah, I definitely do. But I do think that Mayo is now in the Josh McDaniels sort of role, where, we talked for years about Josh McDaniels possibly succeeding Bill Belichick, but I kept telling people, like, no, he's listening. And I think Mayo is listening. I think he will take the first head coaching job that he gets.
Right.
The first offer. But, if I'm the Crafts, having Jerod Mayo here and possibly succeeding Bill would be I would really like that. One thing I would like to see, if that is indeed the case, he's a guy that I would like to see get more offensive experience, perhaps after the season, if he is doing that, to become a more well-rounded coach.
The funny thing is, it'd be kind of strange, right? Belichick decides to step down. His son has been calling the plays on the defensive side of the ball, but then Mayo would leapfrog Steven and be the guy. And it would just be very interesting because people would wonder, well, why was Steve Belichick calling the plays then on Sunday if Mayo was the guy who was waiting to be the head
Yep.
coach? What the hell was going on there? And we've, I was reading, I forget who it was now, but I've been, I was reading over the last week or so that, Mayo he takes the brunt of the work during the week. I mean, he does a lot of the game planning and he does a lot of the work behind the scenes. And on Sunday, Steven kind of calls the plays. I don't know if that's, perfectly accurate or not, but that's what I was reading from at least one or two people. So that would just be an interesting decision by Belichick, because obviously Bill is going to have a huge hand in selecting his successor. And it would just be, that would be a hell of a storyline. Could you imagine Felger eating that thing up for a couple of weeks? His son, his own son, blah, blah, blah. Let's get to one more thing about the Zolak and Bertrand appearance from Mayo. The thing that you didn't necessarily love about it was there was some excuse making and talking about rankings and where they slotted in the seat. So what rubbed you the wrong way about all that?
I think it was, first of all, he was asked about the comments that Rodney Harrison had made about, I think it was on Tom Kern's podcast about, he basically called the defense soft, and how he didn't like it, and he said they got pushed around and stuff like that. Mayo pushed against that. I think those guys are definitely physical. Were there times where it did look like we got soft? Absolutely, but overall, I would not call us a soft defense. At the end of the day, it's about points and how many points we gave up. This is what I didn't like. If you zoom out and look at the season as a whole, we ended up third in scoring defense and seventh in yards. So I heard that stuff, and I'm just like, and I heard him. He very early on, he started talking that way, and I'm just like, I mean, come on, let's be real. That's Patriots footy pajama fans talking. Like, you got trucked the last five, for the last 5 games. You couldn't stop a nosebleed when you needed the whole season. When you needed a stop, the defense couldn't get it, and you go to points. I mean, because you had a really weak schedule this season? Like, they had one of the weakest defensive schedules in the league. Buffalo, I think, was the easiest. New England was like the 3rd easiest. Like, let's be real. I mean, he did say we didn't play as consistent as we needed to play, especially against good teams. Okay. But to me, it's Mayo is hearing that from Belichick too, sort of in the review. Like, we played good defense at times. Look where we were in points and yards and blah, blah, blah. Like, and you also hear this from some Patriots reporters, like, look at, I don't know, expected points or whatever. Like, no, look at the film and how they did, especially with Buffalo running right through you. What was it? 10 consecutive touchdown drives you gave up to the Bills in your own division. That's the kind of stuff that I want to hear, that it's not good enough, that we need to get a lot better, instead of talking about, oh, well, we were 3rd in points, so that means you're a top 5 defense. I mean, come on, give me a break. And so if that's where they're coming from, then I'm not very happy about it, and I'm not very optimistic that things are really going to change. But at least we did hear some of the reality in this interview with Mayo, and Jerod is a realist at the end of the day, but that's a Belichick line about the points, and it drives me crazy.
I could tell.